Hey guys, welcome back. We're going to be looking at another way to solve triangles, and I know you're thinking, what is the purpose of having so many different options? Well, it depends on what you actually know. So, since we already looked at SOH CAH TOA, what we use when we have a right angle, we also need an option for when we don't have a right angle, and this is when we can use the sine law. As you can see here, these triangles do not have a right angle, or they do not tell us about a right angle. The other thing that we notice is when we're using the sine law, we need certain pieces of information. We need two pairs. So in this case, I have a side and it pairs with an angle. I also have another side, I don't know it, and it pairs with an angle. This allows us to use sine law, so if we had three sides and one angle, or just three sides, we would not be able to use this. So with this pairing, what we also can take note of is in this equation, we have sine A over little a, sine B over little b, and sine C over little c. Well, where are those actually coming from? Well, right here, we see we have big A. And over here, this side's actually going to be our little a. Big C across from it, little c. Big B across from it, little b. So this sine law is basically telling you that you can set any two of these equal to each other, whether it's those two, or even these two, and then we can solve. So let's put this into practice. If I want to start, let's just look at this one. I have B and B, but I don't know anything about them, so we're going to just leave those. I do, however, have an A over here, and I know the angle of A is 93. So we can go and we can say, well, I know sine of 93 degrees, and over top I need to know little a. Little a, they're telling me, is x. I need another side, though. On the other side, I see that they're telling me that angle C is 55. So sine of 55, and then I need little c underneath, which they told us is 17. Okay, so now we have one variable that we need to solve for. So to get x on the side by itself, what can I do? Well, first, why don't we cross multiply these two? X will be brought up, and sine 55 will be brought down. So it'll leave us with sine of 93 all over sine of 55. This gives us x over 17. Now to get x by itself, we're just going to bring over that 17 and multiply it by this. So we'll have 17 multiplied by sine 93 over sine 55. Now plug this into your calculator. Just be careful about brackets because this whole thing will need to be in brackets. And then we'll have x, which is going to be 20.7. And then you might have heard me say in some other videos is just to kind of look at what you started with. Does this number make sense? Well, this side length was 17, so 20.7 is a reasonable number. This just helps in case you get a huge number or one that does not make sense, then you can give it another shot or look over your work. Okay, one more example. So first thing I like to do is I find that pair. So I have 80 and it's matching across with 12. I also have 10 and it's matching across with x. So those are the two pairs I'm going to use. And then I'm going to have sine of my first angle is 80. And that's over 12 because that's the one across from it. And then sine of x. So that's what we don't know, but that's okay. And that's over 10. Okay, so now how can we get x by itself in this case? Well, we know how to get rid of that 10. We're going to bring it over and multiply it by the other side. And we can write that as 10 times sine 80 over 12 equals sine of x. Now, if you watched the SOH CAH TOA video, to undo sine x, what we're going to do is sine's going to move to the other side, but it's going to look like this. It's going to become sine to the -1. And that, as we remember, can be found on your calculator. You usually have to shift, and it's usually small right above the sine button. And then we still have to keep everything else we had. So we had 10 sine 80 over 12 equals x. Another thing to consider is just be very careful when you put this in your calculator, because you're going to have to do bracket 10, bracket this whole thing, and then double brackets. Then once that's completed, you're going to get x is equal to 55.1 degrees. All right, and that's a reasonable number to get for our degrees. All right, take a look at some other videos of subjects you may be covering in school, and feel free to subscribe to follow along. Definitely comment any other ideas or thoughts you want me to cover.